office.
Are you sure? Not sure we're allowed to read it.
Robert Commissioner Orr, pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll open up with public comment on issues not on the agenda. Is there any public comment? Yeah.
Chairman, when will the discussion be had on reminders for county boards and members?
We had that on Monday.
I think you discussed it, I don't think you adopted it.
What we did is we discussed it and then we wrote some, or we made notes of some additional things and we sent that out to, we're gonna send that out to the boards
Okay,
and see what other additions or corrections they may wanna put in there, and then we'll come up with a
okay,
solid policy after we get input from the board members.
sounds great. We haven't seen
From the
that yet.
boards. So we do have a little bit of housework here. This is a letter from John Williams for requesting to be a member on the solid waste board.
I understand we have a vacancy, so I will move that we appoint John Williams for the initial 1 year on the trust board.
Motion been made and seconded to appoint John Williams to 1 year on the solid waste board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. So we will move on to the 10-15 Canyon Ferry Trust Board Rod and Gun Club Old Baldy Golf Course grants.
Okay. Gonna wear a lot of hats today, start out with the trust. Here are the grant requests from Old Baldy and the Rod and Gun Club. Basically, at our meeting, we had 3 grant requests. We had Rod and Gun Club for a furnace. The golf course needs to update their golf carts. These are good cost participation things and you know, fits our recreation thing very well. We had a grant request from the Recreation Board for a study. And we hadn't heard a lot, we'd heard a lot of gossip about it. We had never had it presented to us. Finally, the gossip finally settled down and the grant request came to our board. It wasn't clear. We tabled it. We didn't reject it. We tabled it because it's the St. County Recreation Board. It appeared to be dissension from the city on approving this grant. And accordingly, we tabled it until they could get their house in order. We have had multiple grants come in, 4 studies over the years. Probably haven't had a recreational grant in more than 10 years. They generally are very expensive and in the past 20 years that we've had them, very little is adopted out of them, but it does give public input. $25,000 is a lot of money, but that was their call. So we tabled it till they get their house in order. Any questions on those? Okay. There's lots, I understand it was almost a a trust board meeting on Monday, or heavy discussion. So kind of threw some stuff together, hopefully to clarify some of the information you got earlier in the week. Trust board's a special animal. Wasn't established by the county. Doesn't use county funds, doesn't request county funds. We generate our own money. We were established by Congress for 501(c). We are special. In that special designation, I know the term enterprise fund has come up, and the trust board's excluded from the enterprise fund. Well, you get into specifics, and you might want to do your dig around in your files here. Here's a copy of the negotiations with NDC. This is Budowitz in 8th month of 98. Hopefully I made enough of these.
Thank you.
And what it specifies is any income generated by the concessionaire, which is granted by Broadwater County at the silos recreational, shall be returned to the trust and may be spent by the trust manager as part of the income of the trust. That clarifies a lot of things. If you want to take the silos and try to earmark it as an enterprise fund, I think you're going to go sideways with this. And why would you want to do that? So, from a trust board standpoint, and the trust board, we built that. It was our passion. We took that from the swamp, as you guys remember, excavated it, picnic tables, lights, etc., etc. We put all that in to enhance Broadwater County, and it's worked. We've got a lot of participation. The silos housing development took off. There's lots and lots of perks out there. Lots of good stuff happened. It generates a ton of money. And a lot of that money should come back to, it should, I guess by this paragraph, it should come back to the trust board. We need the money for development out there. We because of the contracts that were written in 2006 and then gutted in 2009, we ended up in a position that we don't have money to roll it ahead. And we're supposed to have green belts, we're supposed to have hiking paths. We had a dozen more things in mind out there. So I'm going to give you a little background on that. And this is all trust board stuff. So we spent $750,000. We've had multiple phases on the bay. There is supposed to be another phase on the bay in the Bureau of Recs projects. You know where the first gazebo is? That one, that will all be excavated. That gazebo will be underwater. But, so there's a third phase out there that would virtually double the size of the bay. And Bureau Rec has that. We haven't been able to, haven't had the funds to expand on it. We want Bureau Rec's cooperation on that. And I believe they will. Oh gosh, I'm going to go back in 1998. The campground generated $42,000. We didn't have a bay. We didn't have the fishing tournament. We didn't have boat slips. Knowing that we were generating $42,000 just in camping sites with limited amenities in 1998, 20 years ago, and then you throw in the income from boat slips, that thing should be generating well over $100,000 a year. There should be lots and lots of money. We entered into the agreement as we have here. Oh gosh, this is the 2006 agreement. you guys have all this, I'm just refreshing everyone's memories. In 2006, the specification was the money would come back, a portion of the money would come back to the trust. And the earmarked amount, figuring it was generating $42,000 a year, the earmarked amount was $18,300 was the rental fee back to the trust board. Actually, we earmarked that one for Broadwater County. We didn't care where the money went. We just thought that was fair to go ahead and earmark that, send it in that direction. When those lease payments came due, I remember that we as commissioners forgave the first one. We said, you know, the area hasn't been utilized enough. Let's not make the concessionaire, Sharon Walker's group, let's not make them pay that this first year. So we said we waived the first year. Second year, we were no longer commissioners. Honer and I were gone, and so it was not paid. 2009, a new contract came out with new commissioners. And in that contract, all of that was excluded. That was dropped. There were things remaining in that contract, like monthly deposit and monthly use reports and things like that. So I'm not sure where you're at on those, but at that period of time, you took over all maintenance, all responsibility, all costs. You earmarked 10% back to come, but you had to do all of the maintenance. And quite frankly, that's a terrible contract because it gives you all the responsibility and it gives all the cash away. It is also a never-ending contract, which is illegal. You guys know you can only have 10-year contracts. So there's flaws in that contract, and I guess we were a little insulted that the trust that developed that project were excluded. Then we're going to go into 2013. The concessionaire came to us and said, "Have I got a deal for you?" And it was Jerry Reller was selling out. He'd been kicked off his lease out there. He had a bunch of nice boat slips, and Sharon was going to. We were going to fund the money. She was going to bring them across, set them up, and it really looked like a win-win. But knowing that all the money had been given away in that 2009 lease, we as the trust board said, that's a really good deal. We will fund it to the tune of $61,000, trust board money, no taxpayer dollars. One condition, and the condition was 20% of the gross proceeds of the slips would be returned to the Recreation Board. Recreation Board was new. We were trying to figure out funding for them. And so we said, okay, let's do that. And so everybody agreed. The trust board agreed. Sharon Walker agreed. As the minutes show, Commissioner Robert was there. I made the motion. Here's a copy of those minutes. To keep the county in the loop, we would then wrote a letter to the county commissioners confirming this. we'll try to do our homework here. Bear with us. The letter reads, November 13th, day after this meeting, Trust Board met to discuss 3 docks, Goose Bay, for the Broadmoor County Silos Recreation Area. The Trust Board is proud to announce that we have transferred $61,000 to the Broadmoor County for the purchase of docks. Broadmoor Trust requires Silo Recreation to give the Broadmoor Parks Recreation Committee 20% of the profits for a 10-year period. The Trust understands this is to increase the boat area and needs for additional docks. But here's a copy of the letter given to the commission on that date. So everybody was in the loop. Never adopted, never honored. One thing it did do, and which is terrible, is it stopped Sharon Walker from coming in and requesting more money because, well, we were going to undoubtedly bring it up. So the development of the silos from the Recreation Board stopped at that point. And that's a shame. That is still an asset that still needs to be expanded on. Al Christofferson's working with a group and the Bureau Rec to expand on that, and that is the cherry in Broadwater County that we can use to bring more people and more development here. And I really, really like it. Oh gosh, there's a lot of work left to be done. Need to improve. We're a little confused in looking at the silos. And again, we're overlapping here, trust and silos. We see that the silos fund is running a deficit. You get 10% of the money, but money was loaned to the concessionaire at some period of time. So it looks like I've got it, $16,760 were loaned to, is it JSJ? I'm not sure quite the initials, but, and I'm not questioning, I'm questioning why you would loan that to a private company, for-profit company, but again, now you're into the contract is so poorly done that it's costing the taxpayers money. That shouldn't be there. There's a lot of cash there. I would recommend you explore a better agreement. You need public meetings and you need public input, but my recommendation is from a trust board standpoint, who built that facility, that you need a better agreement.
Can I interrupt? What is the date on the letter? Maybe you said. This one you were just referring to.
The one to the commissioners?
Yeah.
November 15th.
November 15th, 2013.
Oh, okay. That's what
Yeah. So that's what we've got. Any questions?
I might add, I don't think I provided that to Mr. McCullough, but the trust board received a letter from the commissioners shortly after November 15th saying that you approved that grant to the silos. No mention of, but we can't do the 20%. It was just, it's approved as submitted.
So nothing said about we presume
So
that it
yeah.
had been done. We've asked that, but it's been a lot of years. It's become almost comical how often we bring it up and say, why wasn't that done? We would have never approved a $61,000 to a private organization for profit without some concession back. That's just not good business. So again, I'm a little troubled that you guys are losing money out there with that much money being available. But if no questions, I'll give up that.
Can we get approval on these?
Can we get approval on those grants, please?
Or discussion, huh?
Or discussion. Even before we do that, let's venture into one other one. When the trust went after the Bureau of Reclamation land, and we, here we are 3 years later, and we got that done. With the cooperation with Bureau of Reclamation, and they were, I mean, at the speed of government, 2.5 years is about as good as it gets. But they were very, very accommodating and need to be applauded in that. But they gave criteria. They said 24 months after this transfer, you will do these items. Well, we made the error of not keeping that totally in our grasp. And here we are, there's 5 months left to get these items done, and that includes concessionaire agreements with the golf course and rod and gun and the ball field and signage and things like that. There's 5 months left. If that's not completed in 5 months, that goes back. All that land goes back to the Bureau of Rec. Our suggestion is we step back in, take over that. We're capable of doing that. A 5-month timeline is going to be tough, but the previous 17 months have shown that the management of that could slip through the cracks. Things as simple as the contract's been drawn up with these concessionaires and since August, September, October. We've got 90 days. That's what we do. And we use Debbie, we use Mia Whitfield, and we use legal counsel. But what we would like to do at this point, we want approval for that, pre-approval of that, is we're going to need additional hours for Debbie, Mia Whitfield, and legal counsel. But I think we can step in and potentially save this in the 5-month period we've got left. And I guess duly noted, if you choose not to do that and continue the direction you're going, we're going to be very unhappy that that ground, after all of our efforts and money, goes back to the Bureau of Reclamation. So those are kind of the three things we'd like to prove, the two specific grants, and then kind of a general use. We're going to spend some money getting this work done. Any questions?
So you would like us to make a motion to put this back in the hands of the trust board, basically,
Yes, with funding authority.
with funding authority?
I would like to have a discussion on that, but I think it would be more clear for everyone here to take care of the easy stuff, just get it off the table. Specifically your grant requests for the Rod and Gun Club and for
The golf course.
the golf course. Thank you. If that's good with you, Mr. Chairman.
To approve those two. Yeah, I would be okay with that, and I'd like to have more discussion on returning this. So I would entertain a motion to approve those 2 grants.
I'll do them separately if that's all right. I move that we approve the Rod and Gun Club grant for the furnace as presented. And we have seen these before.
Is there a second? Motion been made and second to approve the Rod and Gun Club plant for a new furnace at the Canton Lane facility. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the grant as presented for the golf course, Old Baldy Recreation Association golf cart and equipment updates.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further comment on that? I would like to ask one question. When I was running the ball field, which I am no longer doing, so I say, we were kind of told that equipment such as mowers was not an allowable expense. And in here, these guys have mowers in here.
May I ask, not allowed by Whom?
It was, when we went for a grant for our dugouts and our backstops, we also had entertained the option of also purchasing a new mower, and we were told that equipment such as that was not allowed to be bought.
That's not in our, that denial is not in our group.
Okay,
Yeah. We're kinda open to whatever you need.
okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully whoever takes that over can maybe get something together in that aspect.
You bet.
Okay. So if there's not any other discussion, we'll take a vote on the approval of the golf course grant from the Brattleboro County Trust Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries. Okay, so now we can move on to the land acquisition.
There's a couple of things, Mr. Chairman, that kind of have been bubbling up. Do we have recreation board members here? A couple? All right. So just to give all of you a little bit of history on this, and Steve, jump in if I miss a step. This is a trust board project. They came to us years ago, actually twice, 2011 and then 2.5 years ago, like Steve said, and said that they would like to pursue getting that was under BOR, Bureau of Reclamation. They wanted to get the property that was currently under them and put it back under local control. So it was the golf course, softball fields, rod and gun club, and then there's 10 acres in that same general area that used to be where people would convalesce from tuberculosis and smallpox. It's called the Poor Farm, or it was. So anyway, Mia Whitfield was hired to go through that process, and she did it brilliantly. The National Park Service took lead for the feds, and they required that the county take lead for the local government. Creating the recreation board came from that as a way of making sure that the city was engaged, even though the county would be taking lead. It was not a requirement of the land transfer project. So it got done. The National Park Service said you've got a certain amount of time, 2 years, to complete 11 items. The trust board then came to the commission. We worked together, and they charged the recreation board with taking care of those 11 steps. Through a series of meetings, joint meetings with both boards, individual meetings in which there was communication afterwards between the two, it was determined, I think it was in June, that the trust board would be the funding mechanism and the recreation board would be the worker bees. They would get the work done and it would be funded by the trust board.
Therein lies the problem. That was all discussed, and with very few joint meetings. That was discussed, but was never authorized. And what we said at the June meeting is request the funds. Don't spend any money without requesting the funds. We have to go through the procedure of, they request the funds, we approve the funds, we come to you for the funds.
And herein lies the issue. From the beginning of the project, there was nothing in writing. We had a great relationship, and I think the board got excited, as excited as the trust board did. It was a great project, great opportunity for the community, but there was nothing in writing, and I think we need to remedy that. Nobody was aware of the process the trust board goes through. Somehow there was miscommunication between what the rec board needed to do in order to get the project done. So at this point, I don't think that the rec board in any way can be held as kind of the whipping boy on this. It's not their fault whatsoever. They jumped in with all feet, energized, ready to go. They were never going to do a study. What they were going to do is survey the community. What do you want for these 4 pieces of property? In the joint meeting with the trust board said, hey, don't, or it was a private meeting of the trust board. Yeah. Don't just do the 4 properties, do the whole county. Well, what a great idea. Recreation jumped on board and they got started. So I think it's just miscommunication based on the lack of in writing. We don't have any standards, we don't have any expectations, we don't have any, we will do this, you will do this, you will do this. So I think that's what we need. If you guys want to take it back over, that is fine. As far as the concessionaire contracts, those have been done. Jerry completed those. They did go to the county attorney in August. And as soon as we get the legal Ts and Is dotted, those need to go to the rec clubs ASAP. We have the golf club that's gonna be having your last meeting on the 13th until April. We're well aware of that and are trying to expedite the process so that you guys have that before your meeting, so that you can, give it a perusal and give it your challenges, debates, questions, whatever you need to. So, rec board members, anything to add from anything you've heard?
I think there has been a tremendous amount of misunderstanding. The focus of the rec board is recreation, obviously, since that's what it's called. The rec board is just trying to figure out if we need to build swing sets or handicap accessible picnic tables.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. What is the expected date that Rod and Gun could look, and golf course, can look at those? Because we're, like Steve said, we're 5 months out. It needs to go through our board, the Rod and Gun board, a couple times, probably.
We have the current county attorney in
I
the
thought
back,
so.
maybe he could answer that.
Do you have those contracts available for?
Well, there's problems with them, and that's what I requested from Commissioner Robert. I need to meet with whoever's actually in charge of making that agreement, because I can't just draft a contract in a vacuum. I have to know what the actual agreement is. So whoever that is, I've asked, can I meet with them? There's some problems with the contract, I don't know who drafted them. Whatever lawyer drafted them, I'd like to meet with them, because I think there's some issues that need to be fixed. But bottom line is, I can't, agreement is detail rich, and I need to meet with whoever is actually providing those details so we can do that. And I'm not just gonna approve a contract that someone threw it together and it's 3 pages long and we call it good. That's the problem now.
The contracts were, as you know, from emails, Jerry Grabentz, who is, as we all know, the expert in this field, and that's why he was called in to assist. He drafted those contracts, Mia Whitfield, gave them comments and quite a bit of red lines. Then they went to Corey at that point for just kind of the legal review. So I did respond to Corey, was it last week or the week before, that Steve, I volunteered you and myself. Without Mia here, we're probably the most knowledgeable. But if you want to pay for Mia to come back to town, I would be good with that. But yeah, Jerry wrote the draft using the land acquisition paperwork from the National Park Service, engaged Mia, and then they went to Corey. They're not going to be finalized at this point because they haven't gone to Rod and Gun Club, they haven't gone to the golf course, they haven't gone to the softball fields. So as soon as we have everybody weighing in, then we can go ahead and engage. But really, we should have Jerry involved as well as the #1 expert on this.
So Steve, you mentioned legal counsel, is he your guys', have you guys hired him?
Pardon?
Is he a lawyer? You mentioned legal counsel a minute ago.
Yes,
Did you mean me or did you mean somebody else?
we were anticipating hiring someone else. We know your workload is terrible, and we didn't want to encroach on you.
So is Jerry your guys' lawyer?
No,
No, what we were anticipating, we haven't, just in-house discussion is hiring the city attorney. You understand, they have a new city attorney, and he's got some real estate background, and so we were thinking that'd be an ideal
And he's
situation.
looking for work, yeah?
Yeah.
Corey, the Jerry that they're referring to is with Great West.
Correct, he's a engineer that does recreation specifically,
That's who they're referring to.
and has worked with me in the past, he's worked with the county in the past.
Okay. Well, do you want us to meet after this today, Steve? We can do that.
So I guess my question is, as former representative of the ball field, why can't we just use the city contracts for the basics?
That's my thought entirely. Let's
I mean, we
just
don't
take
need
the
to
Bureau
really-
Rec out, put the county in, and get this thing done. Then we can have public review, we can have renegotiate the contracts. But if we simply re-signed those agreements with minor adjustments, I believe we would cover the Bureau Rec criteria. Mike, that's
Well,
exactly what I have
they
in
would
mind.
almost have to, because when we signed it with the city before, it was approved by the Bureau of Rec.
Yeah,
So I don't know why you couldn't use that
Exactly.
exact same contract and just change that word.
Bureau Rec does not want that ground back. They want us to jump through the hoops. So,
I would caution us going too far down that road without engaging with me at the very least. She sent an email on August 19th in which she talked about going through those contracts, and she said at the very first, they have to be changed from leases to concessionaire agreements. That's what Jerry was jumping off from, well, that's what he had prior to this, because he'd already done the draft. But there are requirements for those leases that were set in place by the National Park Service. So as much as we want to just change a couple of words, we do have to follow their guidelines that are pretty specific. And that's
Absolutely,
what Jerry
yeah.
did. They're ready to go, other than the legal review. We don't need to redraft anything here. They've been done according to the National Park Service requirements. We just need to go ahead and follow through the process.
and we're in full agreement on that, and we could work together on that. And, you know, I know the rec board has got beat up over us not approving that. We didn't approve all of that because they were having internal conflicts. We tabled it so we can resurrect that at any time and approve that money. Our concern is not the money. They think it's a great idea. We're not gonna second guess it. But we're pro, let's charge ahead. We've got the money, we were totally broke in 2008. We did have the project done, but we were broke. We've got over $1 million, like $1.3 million disposable cash. We can help. We got a 5-month deadline. Let's throw cash at this.
I would hesitate to throw cash at this when we already have so much of it done. The concessionaire agreements are the heavy lift, those got done. The other thing is the countywide survey, joint project between the trust board and the recreation board. That's gonna take public meetings, like you say. That's already been started. The thing is there hasn't been internal conflicts with the board. So there's 5 board members. There's Susie Hamilton, Lorinda Spencer, Nicole Brown, Adam Six, and Philip Knopf. During the summer, when you have one person in the hospital and the other person fighting fire, you're not gonna get 100% participation at your meetings. That doesn't equate to internal conflict. That doesn't equate to a dysfunctional board. Every board we have, the trust board, I don't think I've seen all 5 at a meeting in quite a while, and you guys just meet quarterly. No board can get 100% all the time. That doesn't equate to them being dysfunctional. It just equates to people are busy and the board service they do is volunteer. So oftentimes family comes first, their jobs come first. Doesn't equate to dysfunction or internal conflict. So I just want to make sure that's clear. As far as any of that, do you guys have anything more to add, or did I cover it?
That was perfect.
Okay. So if you do want to take it back over, I would ask that instead of just throwing money at it, take the work they've already done and jump off and do that. They've planned a series of public meetings, they've planned a survey, but they needed a facilitator to actually keep it so that it was the most encompassing possible, so that they could get the most public input. Without a facilitator, it is going to be a monstrous lift for any board. So you've got the state's expert.
I guess my recommendation would be, we don't take it over fully.
Yeah.
We want to work with with the RAC board on this. We don't want to start from scratch. We want to take them under our wing or vice versa. And we've got people on board who are really good bulldogs that they don't have available. We've done processes that, have taken years and years and years. I mean, putting this trust board together, I mean, that was a multi-year process. We sent Virgil Binkley to Washington DC, we sent Tom Budowitz to DC so we've got tens of thousands of volunteer man hours on this. We will help the rec board get this accomplished. So, yeah, we're gonna incur some costs. We're gonna do we need some pre-approval on spending that money, but let us help them.
And I think what we need to do is get it in writing. We need it in black and white. So pre-approval, give us an à la carte of what it is you want to do and give us something in writing, because what we can't do is what we've been doing. Like you said, we need to end the miscommunication. We need it in writing.
I think we're gonna get it down to the speed of government. We'll meet in January, so we'll sit on our hands. We'll give up November, December. We'll meet in January. We'll give up 3 months of the 5 we have before we get spending authority. The speed of government's not a good thing.
And Mr. Chairman, I would like to, at this point, any funding that the trust board does is going to come from trust board funds. So obviously, we're going to be conservative and appropriate with that. If it comes to attorney fees or Mia's hours or my hours or research or whatever, we're not asking the county or the taxpayers for a dime. It's coming from trust board.
Good point.
It's still public funds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the project was signed on by the commission. What happened from my view is you guys came to us with a proposal. Let's do this land transfer. And then when the commission signed off, Mia said, hey, we're right there at the end. We've just got these 11 things to do. We've got a time frame to do them. What happened was the recreation board was charged with doing the work. The trust board said, we'll fund it. You guys do the boots on the ground work.
We never said that.
You did, it's in your minutes, and I think I brought a copy with me.
Okay.
But because of the trust, everybody went ahead and started doing what they needed to do. Again, knowing the trust board wasn't gonna meet for another 3 months. Recreation board couldn't wait. They moved forward. There was a lot of verbal communication, but there's been nothing in writing. So this board needs to see the contracts and sign them with Mia. If you choose to hire an attorney, we need to see those. We need to sign off on them. If you are not gonna sign the contract, that you should know that the recreation board has moved to go ahead and pay Jerry. This is not their project, it's yours, and it is your responsibility to go ahead and be true to providing that funding that they heard in a joint meeting would be provided, so that they could do your work of finishing your project. That's why I'm asking for things in writing. We need the clarity in black and white.
Can I get a comment from Al?
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we be very clear on exactly when Steve's talking about take it back, what that take it back is relative to the things that have to be done. If it's all of them, if it's 1 or 2 of them, whatever that is, I think we need to be very clear with you about what those things are and how we're gonna get them done, so that the rec board knows that the rest of them are still in their pocket to do. And secondly, while our next scheduled meeting is not until January, we have the ability to call a special meeting. And it takes 2 of us on the board to do that. So if this is important to do that, I think we could get that accomplished.
Steve?
The concern I have is you're gonna micromanage the board. We've done a very good job, we've never squandered money. You would like us to find out what our expenses are when we don't know what our expenses are. We haven't talked to the city attorney, we don't know if he's available. We don't know, how would you draw up an agreement with me other than say, you know, gosh, charge us $35 an hour and go to work. And she has always been fair. You can micromanage this, you can micromanage to where you stop it. And I think that's gonna be an error. There gets to be an overlap. in the $24,350 request from the Recreation Board for the study, a recreational study, yes, there is a paragraph or two in there that pertains to this agreement. Drawing up these contracts was not $24,350. So this is the trust board's responsibility. Yeah. You know, we picked up 156 acres of prime ground. It's really good for our recreationists. This is a good thing, we know, I think we were trying to put a bathroom in at the golf course, and we spent more than 2 years. This is a good thing, and we've already spent, gosh, probably getting $25,000, $30,000 on this. Still a bargain. We're just here to help. If you don't want to fund it, we'll back up and we'll see if it gets done in 5 months.
Mr. Chairman, from an outside point of view, observing this, how about if you have a special meeting, request an initial amount, take a ballpark figure, an initial amount, come back to the commissioners, they will be meeting twice in November, get an okay for that amount, and the two boards work together and get this done. Everybody wants it done. Don't get hung up. End of comment.
I'd love Ann's suggestion. Would that be acceptable?
It would with me. I would also request, though, that you revisit the grant discussion and engage the Recreation Board. Those 5 people that I mentioned, ask them about, in a meeting that you have, ask them about this, the terms that have been thrown out, the dysfunction, and they're not meeting. Ask from them and hear from them before you make a decision. Because right now, everybody's credibility's been bruised. Everybody's sitting here purple, and that's not okay. This is, I think the citizens are the ones that we need to be thinking of.
I don't think, even the trust board, I don't think would have tabled, knowing that there was money owed and by the rec board, that I think that, I presume this was the process. The rec board okayed the contract. You okayed the contract before you got funding from the trust board. I think we didn't want to put you in a compromise. We didn't want to put them or the county in a compromised position of getting bills and not paying them. At the meeting, and we didn't, that came as a surprise to us. At the meeting, it was mentioned that the rec board had $60,000, so they didn't have to be in arrears on that payment. And the rec board, one of the non-voting members of the rec board, city council members said, hey, we're uncomfortable with this. So that put us in the position of taking sides. We don't want to take sides. If that had been a unanimous decision by the members of the rec board, we would have approved it. I'm speaking for myself, but I think that was a consensus. So we're not trying to be controversial. We're not trying to kick the rec board. We're there to help.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one more thing to add. Just the secretary, not a voting member. Maybe just because this is a public meeting on record, and maybe Ann can include this in the minutes. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but any funding from the trust board has to be in a form of a grant. We have the paperwork. Now I think the rec board knows that. We can't just email or talk and say, okay, we can do that. You have the grant. You've been in many meetings where every grant we've done since I've been involved for at least 5 years has been on the grant application paperwork. So just as a paperwork person, please.
And I think, Debbie, I think you're reiterating my request.
Yeah.
The land acquisition wasn't a grant. It was an in-house project.
Right.
But how it's moved forward has been unclear. So as much as you have the paper trail requirement of the grants, we need the paper trail requirement of something in writing. Standards of how you judge the grants, what they're judged by, and your requirements. When you do an in-house project, put it in writing what the requirements are, because we need to know that moving forward so that we don't have other boards brought in and confusion run amok. So I appreciate that, Debbie, thank you.
We struggle with putting grant, borders on grants. And, you know, sorry, no lawnmowers. Well, maybe we said that and we didn't have any money. I have no idea what that was about, but it's one of those, I don't know why we would have said that. Maybe we wanted infrastructure and not cars, but it's, if you get down to micromanaging every board and every request, you miss the personal study of, Mike, what do you think? You guys got an idea at the ball field, what do you have in mind? And you explain it to us and we go, oh, okay. If we put guidelines on it and borders, okay, now we're restricted. We cannot consider what would be a really good grant because we put borders on it. I think we need to leave it open for the public and it allows for public input and we ebb and flow. That's why when we set this up, we have spending authority and you have spending authority. If we're out of line, you can not fund us, and if you're out of line, we won't fund you. So it's, I mean, that's pretty compromising from a commission standpoint, but I was on that side of the table when we set this up because we know the pressure you guys get. It's you get political pressure that up until the last 60 days we've never had. And, all we were as a cash cow who, we were the golden one that gave money out, and we did the lights at the ball field, we did irrigation system, we did the tennis courts. We're going to have to do again. We're looking at the swimming pool. Lots of stuff we can do. We don't want to be controversial. We want to get back out of the spotlight.
I would make a suggestion that we allow the trust board to fund the accomplishment of these 11 goals that we have that have to be done in the 5 months. And the other part of that suggestion would also be that the recreation board would submit a grant to cover the costs that they've already incurred with Jerry, and also to, in that grant, also have their request for the countywide parks plan that the trust board had suggested that they do. But in the process of trying to get this done in a reasonable amount of time, I think that we should go ahead and fund these 11 points so we don't put this agreement in danger and get this done. And then in the meantime, in those 5 months, also have the rec board and the trust board decide exactly what they want on that plan and get that grant process through so that we can approve that grant. I don't think that we need to have the amount or the grant process for the trust fund board to do these acquisition points, because it's basically been agreed that the county would already do this project, the trust board would fund it. And I think that's, I know enough that the trust board's not gonna take a bunch of money and throw it down a rat hole. And I appreciate you guys managing that money. I mean, it's been through an up and down cycle repeatedly. So I don't think that that's a problem. So I would entertain a motion to allow the trust board to finance the accomplishment of these 11 goals within this document.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make that motion, but I do think for clarity, that a couple of things need to be pointed out. One is, we already have it. So those 11 steps are already charged to the Recreation Board with the grant we've been talking about with the facilitator, Jerry Grabentz of Great West Engineering. It's $24,000, it's a la carte. So if they spend on line 1, there is already a defined amount of what that cost is, but they don't have to do line 2, 3, or 4. Then they can jump to line 5. The grant was turned in July, so it's already been written to pay for the accomplishments of those 11 steps. So if you're good with that clarification, I will move to support what you just said, and that is that we authorize the trust board to move ahead through the approval of the grant submitted by the Recreation Board to accomplish the 11 steps remaining.
And who is the grant with?
The Recreation Board. Probably should have been more of an MOU because of the relationship, but they did a grant. And the chair, Susie Hamilton, is the one that signed it, I believe.
Does this motion give us the flexibility that we can proceed and hire Mia and get legal counsel and do whatever we need to do to expedite this?
That's my intent.
Okay.
That's what I would go along with too.
Tim, do you have a conflict? Oh, sorry.
No, you can go to Tim.
Just a real quick question, Mr. Chairman. You know, since a lot of this has started, we've looked into the funding balance of accounts, if you will. I probably use the wrong term here, but on the Recreation Board, on the Canyon Ferry Trust Board, as well as expenditures and revenue, and agreements with the county and private business, and all the overall management. One of the things we run into is, if you will, using layman's terms, is a brick wall in having all of the information available. So my question to the commission and possibly the county attorney and everybody involved here, we are still pending a contract that is out there for legal review to even operate within the county. And I guess the question is public participation is really important to be able to make sure that we endorse everything that's going on within our local government and in compliance with the restrictions, as Commissioner Opert said, with the National Park Service, Bureau of Reclamation, etc. So what I would like to just ask for clarification is these pending contracts or agreements, are they going to have an impact on the ability for the Trust Board to operate or the Parks and Recreation Board to operate? Again, for public information, we may be just missing the boat, but we're not seeing that information available. Thank you.
One of the things that we have, yeah, and that follows up on your suggestion of accomplishing these 11 items, in the Bureau Rec grant with Great Western.
Bureau Rec.
Recreation Board grant with Great Western, it doesn't have the signage in here. So, again, we need blank authorization so we can accomplish those 11 things. It's not in here. We need more flexibility.
I can answer a little bit of that, Tim. The contracts or the review that are under review right now, they are specifically concessionaire agreements for, as part of facilitating the permanent possession of this property by the county and by the I mean, for this entity would be, I guess it'd be by the county, and then there's a role for the trust board and the recreation board. But the agreements are for those different entities that are currently using property for different recreational purposes and want to continue to do so. So that's, this whole thing is a very large undertaking, and my perception is that we've had some ships passing in the night here as far as who's doing what, and so I would just advise that the commission, I mean, from a risk reward point of view, the risk is we screw this thing up in the next few months and we don't get it done. The reward is, if these guys have got the capability, they've got the means, they've got the desire to do it, give them the ability to do it, and let's get this thing done.
Mr. Chairman, to the motion, I would support, I am hesitant to say let's pull in another attorney. I think we need a couple of things in order to do that. One is I would like to see, again, the grant approved, work with Jerry since he's already done this, since he is the expert. And if Corey will relinquish the concessionaire contracts, using the new city attorney in town to put the legal